There were no promises made, no fantasies spun. No masks worn between us now, only something raw and quiet, something that pulsed with honesty. The air between us felt different, as if it had been cleared of all pretenses. He gave me a small nod, one that said, "I understand," without asking for anything more. No need for definitions. No need for justification. When we stepped into the elevator, just the two of us, it was as though the world narrowed down to this quiet moment. I could hear the rhythm of my heartbeat loud and certain, echoing through my chest like a drum announcing something inevitable. It wasn't fear that made it race. It was my body stirring from a long sleep, waking to emotion, to memory, to the rare ache of being wanted not for what I do, or the roles I fill, but for who I am beneath all that dot as. The elevator hummed upward. I let my thoughts drift. I remembered the last time I touched a man not out of obligation, not because it was expected, but because I genuinely wanted to, and I couldn't even recall how long ago that was. Long enough that it felt like another life, a time before. I had learned to disappear behind titles like wife, mother, caretaker. Somewhere along the way, I'd folded parts of myself into drawers I stopped opening. I never set out to betray anything. That wasn't what this was. I wasn't here to tear. Something down, I was simply standing at the edge of something deeply human. An experience I hadn't just wanted, but needed not to change anyone else, but to reconnect with myself. To remember how it felt to make a choice for me. When the elevator doors slid open, he stepped out first. I followed without hesitation. There was no urgency in his stride, no impatient touch waiting at the threshold. Just a quiet invitation wrapped in unspoken trust. He opened the door to the room and I entered behind him. The room was soft with shadows, dimly lit and hushed with expectation, not of pressure, but of possibility. A space made for choices. He moved to the window, standing still as he looked out over the city lights. I moved with calm deliberation, pouring 2 glasses of wine from the bottle on the side table. The sound of the liquid was the only thing between us for a while. We didn't rush to fill the silence with words. The silence wasn't heavy or uncomfortable. It felt earned, sacred. I walked over and handed him a glass. Our fingers brushed. Just barely, but even that simple contact sent a slow, unexpected ripple up my arm. It wasn't the chill of the room. It was the warmth of choice, of touching someone not because I had to, but because I wanted to. He took the wine and sat down on the edge of the low sofa. Still, he left space between us. Not much, just enough to show he was waiting, allowing me to set the pace. No movement forward, no assumption, just presence. I sat beside him, and for a long breath, neither of us spoke. Then I turned toward him, slowly, and reached up my fingers, finding the soft collar of his shirt, tugging gently as though testing a line I already knew I was ready to cross. "I don't know exactly what I'm hoping for," I whispered, my voice like paper held between fingertips. "But I know I don't want to stop here." He didn't speak, just nodded, his expression calm, reassuring, no questions. No promises, only understanding. We inched closer. The space between us dissolved, not with speed, but with certainty. Our first kiss was not bold or urgent. It was tender, exploratory. The kind of kiss you give when you're trying to remember something you forgot you needed. The kind of kiss that says, "I see you." His hand moved to my waist, fingers warm and still. He didn't pull me closer. He didn't need to. His touch simply said, "I'm here. You choose what happens next." And I did. I leaned in slowly, my forehead resting gently against his shoulder. For the first time in what felt like years, I was fully present in my own body, not acting a part, not fulfilling a role. Just a woman, nothing more or less, living in a moment she had chosen for herself. We didn't rush. We didn't need to. Sometimes one quiet kiss can echo louder than 1,000 declarations. And that night wasn't about possession. It was about presence. About reclaiming something I had quietly lost over time. My right to feel. My right to want. The room around us seemed to soften. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the quiet glow of the lamp near the desk. Or maybe it was the way he looked at Knee sharp and warm all at once, with no agenda except being fully here. But something stirred in me. Something physical, real. I leaned in again, this time pressing my lips gently to the side of his neck, a soft, deliberate kiss that carried no expectations, just intention, just presence. A silent "I'm here." He inhaled, his hand still resting on my thigh. He didn't pull me closer, didn't speak. He just waited, the kind of stillness that invites trust instead of forcing action. I don't want to sleep alone tonight, I whispered into the space between us. And even as I said it, I was surprised by how certain my voice sounded. It didn't tremble. It didn't falter. It knew. He turned his head and looked at me, eyes open, clear. He didn't smirk or rush forward. He asked, simply and softly, "What do you want?" It wasn't a test. It wasn't a challenge. It was permission. A space for me to say exactly what I needed without fear. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't dreaming. I was awake, wide awake in every part of me. I want to feel like I'm still worth being touched. I said, like I'm still worth desiring. Without a moment's hesitation, he leaned in again, one hand gliding slowly up my spine. It was not demanding. It was steady, reverent. The kiss that followed was deeper than the first, warmer, but still held the same quiet wonder. No rush. No pressure, just yes. I moved without overthinking, climbing gently onto his lap, my legs folding around his waist. It wasn't a question anymore, it was a quiet declaration. I want this. For me, his hands traced the length of my legs, stopping at my hips. His touch was slow, almost reverent, pausing at that delicate edge between wanting and restraint. He looked up at me, his eyes asking once again, "Are you sure?" I answered with the softest shake of my head. It's already slow enough, we didn't say another word. We didn't have to dot my fingers and move to his shirt, finding each button, undoing them one by and slow, but without hesitation, each piece. A fabric slipping away, each inch off skin revealed, and I looked at him like I was rediscovering something I hadn't realized. I still had the right to claim, he whispered into my ear. "You'll let I'm just here to follow it," was something I had never heard from a man before, and yet it gave me a strange kind-off confidence, like stepping into a Raleigh. Didn't know I'd always been waiting for me. I leaned down, pressing soft kisses along his collarbone, not to seduce, but to affirm that this time I get to choose. How I gave and how I was allowed to. Receive tonight would be about consent, about understanding and answering. Only neither about touch, without urgency, breath, without hiding in a boot me, a woman no longer afraid of her own needs. I woke up to morning light slipping through the slats of Theckertane, falling gently across my bare shoulder. The room was still, his breath slow beside me, not possessive, not expectant, just presential. I lay still, eyes tracing the ceiling. My heart wasn't racing like it had the night before, but another rhythm pulsed through me, slower, quieter, more reflective. I replayed everything from that first gentle touch to the final glance before we let ourselves dissolve into each other. Every moment had been chosen, no one pushed, no one used, and I didn't feel like a victim, but still. I couldn't deny that something felt off, not in what we did, but in the motion. I found myself quietly tucking Gwen's side. It wasn't loud, it didn't accuse a bud, it was there like a small hollow in me. Just a quiet space where freedom and guilt sat side by side. I turned toward him. He was still asleep, as calm as been the night before. On the nightstand was a glass of water he'd poured for him. I took a sip, then slipped out of bed, pulling his shirt over Miss Holder's. The feeling of fabric on the skin wasn't humpliest, but the feeling in my chest wasn't quite as easy. Stepped out onto the balcony. Sandy Gow was still sleepy. The city unaware off hut had happened just a few hours ago, but I knew, and I found myself wondering, was a moment of passion worth the piece off piece I might have traded for it? I didn't feel regret, but I didn't feel entirely right either. And maybe that was the most honest thing I could admit. You went to share this, especially with the women who've reaped this far. We have the right to feel the right to choose and the right to ensure sex, intimacy, touch. These aren't just instincts, they're a complex weaving of emotion, need, and the value as carrying side. Not every intense moment is worth it. Not every desire should be fulfilled because some things once touched, we may never return to the same way again. I don't feel wrong for wanting, but I'll have to live with the choice whether it becomes a beautiful mori or quiet ache that lingers. And if there's one thing I've learned from last night, it's this: we need to know our own boundaries before someone else crosses them. And more importantly, we have to be brave enough to look at the truth behind each moment of desire and discursives. Did I choose this out of freedom, or was I just trying to escape something? What about you? Have you ever stood at the edge of a decision that felt deeply right, but also undeniably wrong? Have you ever hesitated between feeling and consequence? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every word you leave behind, and if you want to keep exploring stories that are honest, raw, and quietly human, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you won't miss the next reflection of what it means to be seen, to choose, and to feel. I'll see you again in a different setting with a different woman, beauty ways with the same longing to be understood, to be heard.